Welcome to yet another comparison, including my 2017 Acura NC1 NSX, this time against a brand new C8 Corvette Z06. And what makes this comparison so interesting is that the average market value of a 2017 NSX like this one is almost identical to the brand new price of that base model C8 Z06. The owner Bennett recently bought it as his track car to replace his old C8 Z51, and it's basically a stripper spec. It's the 1LZ package, meaning it doesn't even have memory seats, and it doesn't have the upgraded performance Z07 package. So out of the box, it's not exactly a track weapon, but of course he modded his car. My NSX is not a track car. I haven't even taken this to the track yet, although I will be doing that pretty soon. But market value for this car, on average, around 120, maybe 125 for a 2017 model year, whereas Bennett's Z06 was $107,000 with destination. Then he spent another roughly $16,000 on mods, which brings it right up to the price of an NC1. So the question is, which of these two modern mid-engine dual-clutch supercars is better to drive on a canyon road? My car is completely bone stock with just over 33,000 miles. It's on Michelin Pilot Supersport tires. It's a dry sump 75 degree 3.5 liter V6 with twin turbos, 500 horsepower on its own, but combined with the 3 electric motors, including 2 on the front axle and 1 sandwiched between the engine and transmission in the back, this has a total output of 573 horsepower and 476 pound-feet of torque. We have a 9-speed dual-clutch transmission. This is all-wheel drive, of course, with true torque vectoring, drive-by-wire, brake-by-wire, electric power steering, and this car is very heavy at almost 3,900 pounds. This comes with 3rd gen magneto-rheological dampers. My car was also optioned with the carbon ceramic brake package. So almost 10-year-old used Acura supercar for about the same money as a brand new base model Z06 with some mods. Which one is more fun to drive? I've said this in many other NSX videos. This interior I have mixed feelings about. I think the actual build quality is very good, but just visually and in terms of some of the tactile buttons here, it feels like a much cheaper car. The paddles themselves feel very nice. I love the placement and the shape and the size, but the actuation just feels a little bit plasticky. The steering wheel does feel really, really good in the hand though. One of the most comfortable and ergonomic steering wheel designs I've ever felt. Straight into track mode to get the most aggressive powertrain, super handling all-wheel drive, and VSA. This also puts the suspension and steering in the firmer of the 2 settings. I am a big fan of the sound of this twin-turbo V6. Say what you will about this not being a V8 or a V10 or a V12, but this sounds really good at the top end. Even though I've driven this a number of times in the canyons now, I'm still so impressed. Not just from the straight line acceleration and the traction, which you'd expect for a car with nearly 600 horsepower and all-wheel drive, but also just the way this torque vectoring system makes this car feel going into and out of a corner. This is ultimately still street driving. We're not going 10/10s, not even close, but you can still feel the systems helping you feel confident in this car's cornering capabilities and giving you the confidence to put your foot down coming out of corners. The front end is very precise for such a heavy car, almost 2 tons, and yet the turn-in is very immediate. Even though we don't have a lot of front tire grip, and I'm sure that'll be a problem on track. Come on, little birds. So nice, so thoughtful, sharing the road. But yes, even though this car doesn't have a ton of front grip, it makes use of its limited front grip in a really enjoyable way because the front end just feels so sharp. It has a very quick steering ratio. The steering doesn't have a ton of feedback, but the precision is what's so impressive. This 9-speed dual clutch is super quick, not quite modern PDK quick, curious how this will feel against the Z06's newer dual clutch. The brake feel is actually really good when you are braking aggressively. There's good modulation, good bite, and because it's brake-by-wire, you don't feel the brake fade if you ever get to that point. Obviously, I'm not getting to that point right here. My only issue with this brake pedal is that at low speed, sometimes it can feel a little bit on-off switchy. It's just so nimble here. You wouldn't believe this car weighs 3,900 pounds. And it's properly quick in a straight line. I recently compared this car against a McLaren Artura, another V6 hybrid supercar, and this doesn't have the insane mental acceleration of that, but this is more than enough performance for a street-focused supercar. I love how they tuned this V6, despite it being twin turbo, to have that nice induction growl that you expect and want from a Honda engine. And so the reliability of this engine should be very, very high. I have not seen or heard of any engine failures with NC1s. You can really get into a groove with this car on a back road. The learning curve is rather low. The suspension in this stiffer setting is a little bit too firm, and that's one of my complaints with this car, is you can't separate the different driving dynamics settings outside of the predefined dynamic modes. So you can't have, for example, Sport Plus or Track for powertrain and VSA and super handling all-wheel drive while having these softer steering and suspension, which is actually exactly what I would want. I don't need quite this much steering weight because it doesn't actually improve feedback, and the suspension in the softer mode would handle this particular road better. All right, launch time. Oh yeah. Is it an M3 CSL? Based on the hood, I think it was a CSL. Anyways, I'm continually and repeatedly impressed every time I drive my NC1 in the canyons. It is a really, really good car at 7/10ths. The confidence it gives the driver, the quantitative performance, the precision of the controls, even though it's a very digital car, I mean drive-by-wire, brake-by-wire, it manages to feel natural. And with all that clever super handling, all-wheel drive, torque vectoring stuff happening in the background, you would expect this car to feel a little bit unnatural, but that's really not the case at all. Easy car to drive, easy car to extract the performance out of, despite there being so much of it. Is that going to be the case when I hop into the rear-wheel drive, much higher horsepower C8 Z06? Let's find out. All right, we're now in Bennett's 2025 Z06 base model. Honestly, for a base model, this still feels really nice inside. I mean, yes, some of the materials don't feel quite as high quality, but I would say it still feels like a six-figure car. We don't get heated or cooled or memory seats, but they still are power adjustable and they are extremely comfortable. I would say probably on par with my NC1 seats, which I really, really enjoy. I think the NC1 seats are a little bit plusher in terms of the cushioning, feeling a little bit softer, but this contours to my body really well here. So we're powered by a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8, making a crazy 670 horsepower. Yes, 100 horsepower more than the twin turbo 3 electric motor V6 complexity going on there. And we have 460 pound-feet of torque. 8,600 RPM redline. This car weighs a little over 3,600 pounds. This also uses Gen 4 Magnaride dampers from the factory, but Bennett has replaced these with KW V5 coilovers. They are 4-way adjustable. We have double wishbone suspension front and rear, an ELSD as standard, just like my car. And this exterior color is called Riptide Blue Metallic. Like I said, $107,000 with destination. And the $16,000 of mods includes Brembo BM6 big brake kit, endless ME20 pads, KW V5 coilovers, Eibach sway bars front and rear, Apex VS5RS wheels are 20 by 10 in the front, 21 by 13 in the back, absolutely massive. But it actually uses OEM tire sizes, Eagle F1 Supersport Rs, which are very sticky, but they're 275 in the front, 335 in the back. My car uses 245 in the front, 305 in the back, so 30 mil narrower front and rear. We also have some aero, a Jogon carbon front lip, and a Verus rear wing, neither of which does anything on a canyon road. The main mods that we're going to feel here are the KW V5 coilovers, the sway bars, and the Brembo big brake kit. The steering wheel is very square, and I still do not like it. It doesn't feel nearly as ergonomic as the one in my NC1. But overall interior quality, the materials here don't actually, the leathers at least, don't feel as good as in the NC1, but the buttons do feel a little bit better, I would say. At least visually they look better. Oh yeah, that's an aggressive startup. Stock exhaust, mind you. We're gonna throw it right into Z mode, which is Bennett's custom mode. Manual mode for the transmission. So 100 extra horsepower, maybe 250 to 300 pounds less weight, much stickier tires, aftermarket suspension, tuned for the track. Let's see how it does. Wow. First of all, much more aggressive engine sound. Wow, that flat plane crank V8 howling away behind my head. Oh my goodness. Gearing's quite long, but that's largely just because the red line's so dang high. Very precise front end. Oh wow. So this straight line performance here, it's interesting because there's more top-end acceleration, but from lower RPMs, even in the middle of the rev range, like right there, the NC1 feels quicker because of those electric motors and the twin turbos. The throttle response here is so good, so sharp. The steering, very precise. Shifters, the actuation is really nice, although I don't like the paddles themselves quite as much. They're a little bit too wide. Oh yeah, the suspension is very, very firm, but the damping feels so good. Every bump, you feel it, but it's a one and done. No extra bounces. That's a sign of an excellent damper. That engine sound is incredible. It is the more exciting powertrain. Oh wow. Wow, I actually prefer this brake pedal as well. But then again, we have Brembo big brake kit. Tire grip. I would say this car does feel a little bit more nimble than my NC1. Less weight helps a lot. Dampers are no joke. Absolutely track focused, but actually doing a better job than I expected, given that this is actually Bennett's track setting for these dampers. He didn't adjust these for the canyons. Oh, never gets old, man. Also, this dual clutch transmission is an 8-speed versus my NSX's 9-speed, and it definitely feels quicker. Not a whole lot quicker, but it's noticeable. In the NC1, sometimes you get a slightly inconsistent shift speed. Sometimes it feels a little bit slower, but the rest of the time it feels great. This just always feels quick and responsive. Oh yeah, a little bit of rotation on corner exit. Oh, this damping, so good. KWV5s. I didn't realize these would feel so good because they're not a motorsport damper like a club sport. Tell that if you were to drive this car on track at the limit compared to an NC1, let's say with the same tires, same brakes and whatnot, this would feel sharper. And I'm not just talking about the aftermarket suspension, but also just the throttle response, the transmission, and just the fact that the car is lighter and more nimble, and you can fit so much tire under these fenders. I think the NC1, you might be maxed out with a 265, and that's pushing it. Yeah, this is a very, very good car. Definitely the best Z06 I've driven. The only other one I've driven, though, wasn't set up for the track at all, so that's to be expected. But this just feels so, so sharp, and I love this suspension setup, even though it's not tuned for this road. Fast car, but I think if you're looking for that effortless acceleration out of corners, the NC1 still has the benefit of that all-wheel drive hybrid powertrain that gives you that drama-free hook up and go. In this car, you have to be a little bit more mindful of how much throttle application you give, because ultimately it is rear-wheel drive. Even though it has a massive rear tire and it's very sticky, you're still sending so much power through the rear tires. This modified Z06 is the better driver's car, and even compared to the stock example I drove with stock suspension, I would say if you're just looking for that sharp mid-engine balance with a high revving naturally aspirated engine and all the thrills that come along with that, and the rear-wheel drive playfulness, the Z06 is the more traditionally driver-focused car of the two. But what I love about my NSX is that it's not trying to be a traditional supercar experience. At the time, it offered something that only the much more expensive 918 Spider gave you, that hybrid assistance. Yes, maybe on track it would hold it back, and it has its limitations, being a first-generation technology. In the canyons, when you're just driving 7/10, 8/10, it gives you this level of confidence you just don't get with really any rear-wheel drive comparable supercar. I'm still very happy with my NSX, and I can't wait to take it out on track to see its pros and cons when you drive it truly at the limit. But this Z06 is set up in such an impressive way with just a few high-quality parts. It has completely transformed this car from a kind of more GT feeling sports car into a true track weapon. And in my opinion, it is every bit deserving to be called a supercar. So a big shout out to Bennett. Let me know what you think about this comparison. Very different cars on paper, but they achieve similar levels of enjoyment on a back road. Let me know which you prefer down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.